All right. So today we're going to focus on arithmetic sequences. We're going to continue talking about that, but we're going to now shift a little bit the focus and move on to the next portion of this chapter, which is the equations. Okay. So I'm gonna get started with the formula that we're going to be using. So our formula says T of n is equal to um, d times n, adding the a sub 0. Okay, and each of those items, as I'm sure you know from your math class, from your integrated class, represent a specific term. For example, the n stands for the term number. Okay, it's the term number. So the number that we are interested in finding. And that helps us to answer questions such as this one on the first example, find the 20th term. Okay, the 20 is the term number that we are interested in. And that is exactly what we will use, Okay, so the next part on our formula is d of n. And the d represents the common difference. Okay, so that's what we're gonna put here, the common difference. And the last point, okay, so the next n, it's exactly the same thing, term number. Each n stands for the same thing. And the last item is the a of zero, a sub 0, and that represents the zeroth term. Okay, so at this point, we already know how to find the common difference and how to find the zero term. So all we're going to do now is add the next step, which is use what we know to create the equation. Okay, so let's look at the first example. Example number 1 says, use the sequence to answer the questions. So we have 4 questions to answer, and our sequence starts with -5 as our first term. Then we have -1, 3, and 7. Okay, those are the sequence numbers. Now, the first question says, what is the common difference? And as you know, in order to find the common difference, we need to know what are we doing to go from 5 to from -1 to from -5 to -1. And same thing from -1 to +3. So what is happening here? Okay, so what is happening from one term to the next? And one way to do that, as we have been doing before, is grabbing the term, in this case 1, and subtract the previous one, -5. So that's what I'm going to do here. Okay, -1 minus a -5, which gives me, and in order to do that, I'm going to go to decimals. Okay, so here's my calculator. -1 minus a -5, and that gives me a +4. Okay, so that's what I'm going to put here, +4. Now, just to make sure, I'm going to do the next one. So 3 minus the previous number, which is 1. So 3 minus -1. Let me put it in parentheses, -1. And again, because we are dealing with a couple negative numbers, I recommend that you guys use decimals. So I have 3 minus a -1. That gives me again 4. Okay, so that's what I'm going to put here, 4. And if I do the last one, 7 minus the previous number, the previous term, which is 3, I should get, again, 4. So since I have the same number on all 3, that tells me that, as a matter of fact, my common difference is 4. So we are adding 4 each time we are moving from one term to the next. Now, to find the zeroth term, what we need to do is work backwards. Okay, so now I want to know what is happening. What is the number before the first term? Okay, so if the common difference is telling me that we are adding 4 each time, or we're going moving 4 in the positive direction, then what I need to do to find the zero term is subtract 4, because that's the opposite of adding 4. So -5 minus 4. And I can go to um, my decimals and put -5 minus 4, and that gives me -9, which tells me that that is my zeroth term. Okay, so that's what I'm going to put here. My zeroth term is -9. And now I can actually go to my next question, which is what is the equation? Okay, so what is the equation? Well, I'm going to use this formula that I have up here. And T of n remains the same, equals to D. The D is the common difference, which in this problem we found it to be 4. So I'm going to put 4 times n, so I'm going to put the n in there, plus our zero term, which in this case is -9. So I can put parentheses -9. But if you notice, it looks a little ugly and complicated, too much going on there. So what we can do is just ignore that. And instead of putting plus and -9, just put -9. And that makes the equation a lot cleaner and more simplified. Okay? And that's it for this question. So we can now move to question number 4, which is find the 20th term. And that's what it came. This equation is going to help us with, because now that I have this, I could say, let me see if I can copy paste it here. I don't have to type it again. And I was able to. Okay. So now that I have that, all that I have left to do is instead of n, I'm going to put the term number that we are interested on. And in this case, we are interested on the 20th term. So 20, T of 20 is equals to 4 times 20 minus 9. And I can, if needed to, I can copy this and go to my calculator, my decimals. And I say, even if you think, like it's always good to use your calculator, use your resources so that you are for sure, for sure that you are completing this problem correctly. And that tells me that the number is 71. Okay, so that's from decimals. Can go back to my worksheet and say that T of 20, my 20th term, is equals to 71. Okay. And in example number 2, again, it's basically the same instructions. We're going to use this sequence to answer the questions that follow. And my sequence starts with 29 in the first term, second term is 21, third term is 13, and the fourth term is 5. Okay, so now my first question says, what is the common difference? So to find the common difference, we need to know what is happening. How we're going from 29 to 21, and from 21 to 13, and from 13 to 5. Okay, as you can tell, the numbers are decreasing, so that tells me that my common difference will have to be negative, because we are taking away numbers. Okay, so to make sure of that, I'm going to subtract 21 minus the previous number, which is 29. 21 minus 29, and that gives me -8. If you need to make sure and double check that in your calculator, you can go to decimals and say 21 minus 29, and there you go. There you go. It is 8. Okay. Now I'm gonna do the other one, which is 13 minus 21. 13 minus 21, and that also gives me negative 8. And finally, why not? 5 minus 13. Oops, 15. That's not gonna work. Okay, so that again gives me negative 8. So as I said before, it's for sure our equation is going down and it's decreasing by 8. So now we can say, we can put here that our common difference is negative 8. And that moves us to the next question, which is what is the 0th term? So in order to find what the 0th term is, we are going to do the opposite of what the common difference is. So if we are adding, we're subtracting 8 to find the 0th term, we're going to add 8 to the first term. Okay, so we're going to grab our first term, which is 29, and add 8. And as always, you can go to Desmos and say first term 29 plus 8, and that gives you 37. Okay, so that tells me that my 0th term is 37. So that's what I'm going to write here, 37. Okay, now that completes the second question, and now we are able to move on to question number 3. What is the equation? So now we can use this formula to help us with that. Okay, so now instead of this, we're going to replace it with our common difference and our 0 term. Okay, so T of n stays the same. T of n is equals to, here we have D, which is our common difference, and for this problem, it happens to be negative 8. N remains the same, and then we're going to do plus our 0 term, which is 37, so 37. And that is our equation for this sequence. All right, that takes us to question 4 on this second example. And it says find the 15th term. So again, we're going to take our equation and we're going to just replace what we already know. So here, instead of the n, we are going to replace it with the term number that we are interested in, which in this case is 15. So T of 15 is equal to negative 8 multiplied by 15. And we add the 37, not the, oh my goodness, 37. Okay, and again, you can always put all this part into your Desmos. You don't necessarily need to include this, but for sure this other part. And when you put that in Desmos, that gives us T of 15 should be equal to negative 83. Negative 83. So the 15th term is negative 83.